So welcome back, my dear students. Welcome back, everyone. This is a new lecture, a new chapter in our own business continuity. And here we go now. Just yeah, here we go for our work today about the business continuity. And actually, from the start itself, I just want to tell you that supply chain business continuity strategies, the strategies here, you must devise and tailor your continuity strategies to the requirement of the company itself. Make some minor alterations, like alternatives. Don't put the same plan, always a change. Make amendments, make changes. Insert your company's name and expect them to meet the unique needs of your operations. Partnering with the business continuity manager. Also, the role of a business continuity manager is to provide leadership directions and oversight to ensure successful development, implementation, and ongoing maintenance of the company's continuity program. You can ensure that the continuity strategy of your supply chain business unit will successfully integrate with those of all the departments. You can't work alone. You have to work within the other departments as well to meet stakeholders' requirements. Before this, I said what the meaning of stakeholder, and I said that the stakeholders are those who have benefits in dealing with the organization, who have the suppliers, the buyers, the clients, the government bodies, all who has any kind of relationship with your own company. Regardless of unexpected event, by collaborating with the business continuity manager and continuity team. So you are always having to do a kind of participation between you and between other departments, so that will ensure the effective of the of your own strategy, business continuity strategy. Another strategy is to meet with the risk manager or a representative of the risk management department. So this is another way, because there must be links between risk management and continuity planning. Risk management staff will often provide valuable information for the assistants. So once you have the help of other departments, this will give you a chance to make a better decision. Also, loss prevention and security specialists should be included when considering strategy options. So when you put your strategies, put the specialist of the loss prevention and the security in your consideration, because we are talking about how to secure your situation. So nevertheless, that the loss prevention and security specialists will get a hand here. Okay. The supply chain flow of raw materials, components, parts, and finished goods, as well as information, must be protected by both external and internal risk. So all your work, don't forget that you have two types of risk. You have internal risk, which comes to you from inside the company or within your investment. And we have also external risk, which comes to you from the outer environment. So you have in both the cases to be aware of those kinds of risk, and must be also included within the strategy. How about the insurance consideration? What about the insurance consideration? Insurance. You know that the insurance always transfer the risk. It transfers the risk from one body to another, from your body to another bodies, like the insurance company, which will compensate you in time you have risk already. So if you insured your house, your car, whatever, that means that you will take a compensation in case any of them had been touched by a risk, or Okay, so the organization's insurance specialist is a valuable resource to tap into during the strategy development phase in order to gain an accurate understanding of insurance coverage for supply chain interruption. So while you are working the strategy and you don't want losses, so why don't you insure? Why don't you insure your work? Just to make sure that everything is fine. Okay, in most cases, insurance pays to cover physical losses such as building, equipment, and inventory. In addition, the organization may carry business interruption insurance to cover extra expenses in the event it is necessary to conduct business at a different location because of insured damage at the original place of business. So put in your concern always that you are working in an environment with a risky, you're working in a risky environment. So in that case, have to be insured and put the insurance considerations all the way up. So always think about the insurance consideration. So developing strategy options. When developing strategies, it is important to remember that business continuity does not mean conducting business usual. Okay. All possibilities should be investigated. Do not immediately adopt. Look at this, the first solution presented. So you have to look for all the solutions, evaluate all the solutions. And we have also another video here about the decision-making steps where we will evaluate every alternate with the cost and benefit analysis evaluation, which means that I will study each alternate and see what are the positive and the negative consequences of applying this alternate. So here now, things like when you develop a strategy to ensure continuity availability of key components supplied by a sole source, this is very important, these considerations. You have to put it in your concern when you develop a strategy. Doing nothing, crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. No, you shouldn't do this because you must work, you must create alternates, evaluate these alternates, and so on. Working with a supplier to develop mutually beneficial approach, this is also not enough. Establishing redundant suppliers, this is also not enough. Purchasing the supplier, this is not enough. Begin by again gathering the supply chain managers. So to make a good strategy, depend on the information which you will have, which you will get from all around you. By series of brainstorming sessions, this time to identify options for strategies, okay, for maintaining or restoring time-critical supply chain operations. Okay, the brainstorming also will help here. When you collect the other managers with you, the brainstorm will help here because you will generate, you and them, when you guys participate together, you will generate more ideas and better ideas. This also is not likely to be better. Present a scenario, a brief narrative describing hypothetical situation. Hypothetical means assuming that something will happen, and you, based on this assumptions, you will act due to what we call it what if analysis. So yeah, and conditions that likely further when destructive or disruptive event occurs. So you will see the scenarios, the scenario of what if analysis, and you will go with them. Yeah, so okay, those are some points that will help you to do your own business continuity strategy. Public safety officials here reports that it will be at least 3 days until they can allow anyone back into the building. That's if something happened. If something happened, then for each function identify, as example, you find a problem happened to your work, in your work, and there's risk or damage. So in that case, do the following steps. How operations would be impacted by the scenario? So you can imagine it in the case of this situation happen, what I will do. Current capabilities to address this situation. How long it would take to continue resume operations based on the capability, and whether this meets identified RTO or not. So using brainstorm is very important also to create a good ideas for your strategy. Temporary transferring responsibility for the function of the another of the organization's locations. So give more decentralization systems, means give the authority to the other employees and the other employers to work on behalf of the headquarters. Temporarily moving the function and the people responsible to another of the company's locations, as well as temporary spending non-time critical functions at the temporary location to make the necessary space available. That's another point. Developing redundancy by dispersing the function of one or more other company locations. That's fine. Having arrangement in a place to temporarily outsource the function, and this is also fine. All these are things you have to put in your concern when you do the strategy. Building a company facilities now to accommodate the function of the event of an actual further disaster that displaces the function. So in all this work, you will always run the strategy. You will always run your strategy by putting these concerns in your concerns, you put in this in your concern, this point. Now I move forward also to some points which is important. Strategies are must for two dimensions of every operation: plans for disaster that directly impact the organizations, and there is another one, which is plans for when a link in the supply chain experience a disruption that creates a disaster ripple effect. So we have two kinds of strategies: aggregate strategy, which for the whole organization, and one for each department apart. To be effective, strategy should vary according to industry and the organization, product or services. So like we said before, there is no one for all fit strategy, no. There are also options for continuing a function that it cross enterprise boundaries and require collaboration outside the organization. Yes, with contractors, suppliers. So your own strategy will be completed when you contribute with these levels. As example, for a food service company, the thousands of customers rely upon the bread daily strategy to ensure a sufficient supply of bread is simply strong enough in freezers to meet the requirements for one day in the event that daily delivery is not received. So as example, if there's companies that will rely on you on affording them the bread which they need, then at least put a store, like a storage of bread, a stock of bread in your fridges for one day, at least. That's if something happened, so you cannot, you don't stop working and waiting for the bread to come. When planning for a continuity in the event of the disaster severely damages or destroys a production facility, dual objectives must be met. Dual objectives, two objectives. Strategies are needed to replace the output of the impacted facilities and thus continue to meet customers' expectations. This is a point that we are always our eyes on the customer expectations. Again, the need to consider both benefits and costs cannot be overlooked. Supply chain managers must continually make informed distinctions between the battling priorities of cost effectives and efficient continuity strategies. Okay. Now, to say, when I will select a supplier, a secondary supplier, what are the concerns which I will put in my concern to select a second supplier? Whether the company is currently producing a full capacity, I had to put this into concern. The company's ability to meet increased needs, second point. How quickly and easily the company can expand, third one. The ability of the company supply network to support any required production increase. Those are points which I put in my concern. One more point is very important, which is day-to-day real-time supply chain visibility system can be applied to avoid the stoppage of incoming materials resulting from any type of interruption. So the visibility of the system, so that everything is clear, everything is there and affordable. When suppliers are not disaster resilient, companies must find new business partners or diversify beyond their usual resources. So they don't depend on only one supplier. Plans for actions to prepare the natural disasters should be created as well. So put in your concern, what if analysis. What if this happened, if this situation happened, how I will act then, what I will do then. We have also another strategy for consideration is entering into reciprocal agreement, which are formal agreements made by two or more companies or organizations to use each other's resources following the disaster. So try to depend on another company that you guys will use, it's a formal agreement to use the same resources in case of disaster. This is an example to show you the idea. An example, imagine that the corporate headquarters of two companies that both produce and distribute computer softwares are located within 30 miles of each other. Companies A's product is computer games, while companies B's are developed and distributes a financial software package used by small business. So company A has a second facility located 30 miles to the north where its product is duplicated. Packages were housed and shipped to brick and mortar and online retailers. So there must be a kind of cooperation between two companies which are working on one area. Okay. So the devil is in the details. The devil is in the details. What do we mean by this? Once basic strategies are identified, dig into all related requirements for ensuring continuous business flow, such as inventory levels, stocking plans, and movement of materials and components, and parts of the products. Don't forget to consider the need of skilled people to carry out the strategy. And this is another point. So each department, of course, will be responsible about giving the data and developing and maintaining the ideas and thinking about the alternates, evaluating the alternates, and so on. Throughout the development process, keep in mind the goal to protect the organization by ensuring the operation can continue to be restored and to an acceptable level within a predetermined time frame. So put this in your concern always. Now, how we will identify the critical suppliers. Just some ideas about the warehousing and the supply chain. 20% of a company's stocks takes 80% of its warehouse space, as example. 80% of sales comes from 20% of the sales force. Those are some to show you that it's not always equally. All the departments' devotions in the main object is not equally. Some do efforts more, some contribute more, and this is the idea. You should identify your critical suppliers. Take care because you will have many suppliers, but you have some of them, you rank them on the top. You rank them on the top. Core services, the current level of satisfaction with these business partners should be examined on the ongoing situation. By their very nature, niche suppliers likely belong in the critical suppliers category. So you will choose one of those suppliers. One of your suppliers will be the best, and you will work on that file as well. Okay, so always check out and look for your critical suppliers because their contributions are more than other suppliers. That's what you have to care about them in case of danger. If something happens, then what you will act or how would be the situation. Now you did the strategy. Now you will test the strategy. You will see the feasibility of the strategy, means how far it's worth, or is it okay to apply this strategy? So it is kind of a check to the certain that the considered approach adheres to the identified recovery time objective. So you make sure everything is okay. To make all notifications that will include people to arrive, the people, assess the damages which will happen, activate the strategy which you will apply, relocate people, equipment, and supply if necessary. So in that scenario that the risk will happen, who will be relocated, what equipments will be relocated. So you prepare yourself from everywhere to restore IT support system and communicate capabilities, and to complete steps to continue to restore the function. These are very important things to put in your concern. Also, we have the outsourcing option. The outsourcing option is very important as well. The outsourcing option. Now we will move into the word global. Like you see here, the word global, because once we talk about the outsourcing, then we'll talk about the global. Some companies have seen a need to contain supply chain costs by outsourcing supply chain and other functions. As example, the outsourcing is to look like I usually say to my students, the outsourcing, like if you want to make a cake, so you go and buy the components from outside and make it. This is the outsourcing. Or you buy the cake ready-made. That's if this cake will cost you at home more than if you buy it ready-made. For that reason, the outsourcing sometimes is a better solution, particularly nowadays, especially in the globalization time. It's giving you example here. In recent years, there has been an increase in using third-party logistics. Yes, my company is not enough to be used as a logistic, so I will use another company or third party or other services as a way to improve the process, reduce the costs, and so on. So here, no part of the supply chain from order management to manufacturing and through to the distribution process is exempted from the risk. So when you depend on outsourcing and there is risk, then all will be touched by this risk. All will be hurt. If there is damage or risk, all the departments will be, so you put in your concern this. The risk in outsourcing include threats to security, availability, integrity of the systems and resources. Very important. Those are the risks which come from the outsourcing. These are the risks which will come from the outsourcing. Because when an outsourcing company performs services on behalf of your organization, increased levels for reputation risk can result. So the risk can result. Leads the supply chain and related business process that your organization outsources, such as the distribution, logistics, warehousing, inventory, and control information technology, procurements and sourcing, and reverse logistics. Okay, then what? For each process of outsourcing, every possible measure must be taken to ensure the provider reliable, including the following: checking the customer references. Those are the points. Determining if the inherited security risk from the outsourcing company or middleman, where is this risk coming from? Fully understanding what could happen and how it would impact the outsourcing company. Asking questions about tier 2 suppliers and their dependability to depend on them. Reviewing and understanding the service provider. Also, this is a very important point. Learning who has ongoing continuity responsibilities, such as reviewing, auditing, testing, and all those who will be touched by the risk. So you have to totally understand how far the risk will be if a problem happened. If a problem happened, how far the risk will be regarding your company and so on. Usually, you can ensure that the strategies are in place to address transportation-related disasters. Disregarding the transportation, make sure of this point. Determining whether your transportation system is sufficiently diversified. So you are using intermodal transportation system. You are using roads, railways, trucks. You are using ships. You are using planes. So make sure that it is diversified enough, or you are in lack to use one of these methods more than the other, or you are missing to use, as example, trucks, and you are depending on the trains or the rails only, and so on. Developing redundancy by using multiple carriers on an ongoing basis. So yeah, so don't use one carrier only, but use multiple. Creating strategies to implement the event disaster hits a transportation supplier. That's if the problem will be in the transportation supplier. Identify alternate routes for both incoming and outgoing shipments. What about the purchasing? The purchasing department has a multiple business continuity rules. The first is to develop the strategies and plans for continuing the department's most critical function into the interruption when there is interruption. The purchasing department is one of the most important departments for solving the interruption problem. The second is to develop and carry out rigorous process that results in the selection of the supply partners. This is another point. Okay. Also, we have to check out for the supplier selection. How can we check the supplier, choose the supplier? The consideration assessing each supplier in order to better understanding the companies and its importance to your organization include the following points: whether the supplier is a single or a sole source for vital product you need it or services, the product or the services the supplier applies. What is the product? The level of criticality of the product, how far this product or service are important to you, whether your organization is considered priority customers. You have a priority customers, the proximity of the supplier to your facilities, the possibility that your company and the supplier can both be impacted by the same disasters, whether the supplier operation are geographically dispersed, how often the supplier product is delivered, the inventory level. Those points you have to put in your concern when you choose your supplier. the length of time required to process the order, the supplier's history and reputation, he's a good or bad supplier, the expected level of difficulty in finding an alternative supplier. So how far it takes from me to have another supplier. Also, we have to ask each supplier or contractor or service provider or business for the following information to have a good strategic plan. The scope of its continuity plan, for example, whether it is comprehensive business continuity plan or disaster one, how long the business continuity program has been in place, the owner and the sponsor of the business continuity program, whether the planning process included a hazard assess or no, the frequency of scheduled training and testing, the date of the plan was last exercised and tested. Also, when it was reviewed, the plan was reviewed, the degree to which all employees are familiarized with the business continuity plan which you are ahead of, whether the backup of a vital paper and electronic records are stored off-site, and so on. And procedures are okay. Also, the procedures are okay. And whether procedures are in place, in the right place, how your organization will support its suppliers experience serious disruption or operations, a clear-cut time-specific definition of how long delivery the supplier's product or service to your company would take, whether the company is confident that it is adequately prepared to handle all unplanned operations or no. Those are the main points that you have to put in your concern about your supplier. That is the most important points here, plus the supplier monitoring and ensuring continuity in supplying, and we will handle this in the next video. Till that, thank you so much. Have a very wonderful day. Stay safe, everybody. Bye-bye, my dears.